Welcome back to G Fun Facts Online. Today, we are going to take a walk. We are starting in a place that might seem completely ordinary, a quiet, muddy field in Rutland, England. It is the year 2020. The entire world has ground to a halt under the grip of a global pandemic. In the midst of this silence, a farmer's son named Jim Irvine is out for a stroll. He is looking at the ground, perhaps just watching his step, when he notices something. It is a scatter of pottery shards and some strange orange tiles peeking out from the turf. He doesn't know it yet, but he is standing on top of one of the most significant archaeological discoveries of the century. What lay beneath his boots was not just a Roman floor. It was a time machine. It was a stone archive that would resurrect a story lost to human history for over 1,000 years. Today, we are talking about the rediscovery of Troy and how Roman mosaics in the British countryside are preserving ancient myths better than our libraries ever could. We need to understand the scale of what was found in Rutland. When archaeologists finally brushed away 16 centuries of British soil, they revealed a mosaic floor measuring 11 meters by 7 meters. That is the size of a grand dining hall. And it wasn't a geometric pattern or a simple floral design. It was a vivid, technicolor comic strip of the Trojan War. But here is the twist, and this is where our story really begins. As the experts look closer at the figures in the stone, at the heroes Achilles, Hector, and King Priam, they realized something was wrong. If you have read Homer's Iliad, or even if you have seen the movie Troy, you know the standard beats of the story. But the floor in Rutland was telling a different version. It was a director's cut of the myth that had vanished from the literary record. This discovery opens a gateway into a fascinating world where floors served as books, dining rooms served as theaters, and the myths of Greece and Rome were used as social currency to navigate the complex hierarchy of the empire. Let's break down exactly what makes the Rutland mosaic so revolutionary. It is divided into 3 dramatic panels. To a casual observer, it is clearly the Trojan War, but to a classicist, the details are wonderfully instructively wrong. Look at the first panel. It depicts the climactic duel between the Greek hero Achilles and the Trojan prince Hector. If you open your copy of Homer's Iliad today, you will read that this battle takes place on foot. Homer describes the heroes chasing each other around the walls of Troy, their feet pounding the dust, their lungs burning. Yet the Rutland artist has placed both heroes in chariots. We see wheels spinning, horses rearing, and the heroes striking at each other from raised platforms. For decades, scholars might have dismissed this as a provincial mistake. They might have said, oh, this is just a British artist who didn't know his Homer. He's just guessing. But the Rutland discovery proves that this was a deliberate choice. This mosaic aligns with a specific, alternative tradition of the myth that was popular in the 5th century BC but later fell out of favor. The artist wasn't making a mistake. He was referencing a visual tradition that is actually older than the version we are most familiar with. But the real bombshell, the detail that made archaeologists gasp, sits in the final panel of the mosaic. In the Iliad, the grieving King Priam comes to ransom his son Hector's body from Achilles. He brings a wagon load of treasure. It is a scene of high emotion. Achilles, moved by the old man's grief, accepts the ransom without counting it. It is a moment of shared humanity. The Rutland mosaic, however, shows us something much colder. It shows a massive set of scales. On one side of the scale lies the limp, battered body of Hector. On the other side, a heap of gold. This is a transaction. It is the weighing of Hector. This specific detail does not appear in Homer. It comes directly from a lost tragedy by the Athenian playwright Aeschylus, titled The Phrygians. We have known for a long time that this play existed. We have found references to it in marginal scribbles in medieval manuscripts. But the text of the play is gone. It was lost to time, rotted away or burned in the destruction of ancient libraries. We knew the play featured a scale, but we had no visual record of how the ancients imagined it, until now. The Rutland mosaic effectively resurrects the climax of a lost masterpiece of world literature. It proves that the owner of this villa in rural Britain was not just aware of the Trojan War, but was conversant in a niche, alternative version of the myth. This would have signaled extreme cultural sophistication. It forces us to ask, why put such a specific, scholarly story on the floor? To answer that, we have to step into the Roman mind. For the Roman elite, there was a concept called paideia. This translates roughly to cultured education. In the Roman Empire, it wasn't enough to be rich. You had to be civilized. You had to know your myths. The room, where this mosaic was found, was a triclinium, a dining room. This was the social heart of the villa. Guests would recline on couches arranged in a U shape, eating, drinking, and talking. The mosaic floor in the center of that U was the focal point of the entire evening. It was designed to be looked at. It was designed to be discussed. Imagine a dinner party in 4th century Rutland. The host is perhaps a wealthy Romano-British aristocrat, or maybe a retired official from Gaul. He pours the wine. A guest looks down and points to the floor. The guest says, I see you have Achilles there. But surely, didn't they fight on foot? And the host smiles. The trap has been sprung. He replies, "Ah, you are thinking of Homer. But this floor follows Aeschylus. Have you not seen the play?" In that moment, the floor serves its true purpose. It allows the host to perform his knowledge. It allows him to distinguish himself from the uneducated masses who only know the standard version. The mosaic is a conversation piece, a test of cultural literacy, and a badge of belonging to the broader Mediterranean world. It is fascinating to think about how this image got to England. It is very unlikely that the mosaic artist had read the lost play of Aeschylus. Instead, these artisans likely carried what are called pattern books. These were scrolls or sketches containing standard designs for mythological scenes. These designs traveled thousands of miles along the Roman roads and trade routes. The image of the weighing of Hector on the Rutland floor is strikingly similar to images found on a silver cup in France and a coin from Turkey. This reveals a network of images, an information highway of visual culture. A design created in Athens could end up on a coin in Turkey and a floor in England, preserving the story long after the original text had rotted away. Now, while Rutland gives us the Greek tragedy of Troy, another remarkable British mosaic gives us the Roman sequel. This is the Lowham mosaic, discovered in Somerset in 1945. If Rutland is about the end of Troy, Lowham is about the beginning of Rome. It depicts the story of Virgil's Aeneid. This is the earliest narrative art in the UK, and it tells a story not of war, but of doomed love. The Lowham floor captures the romance between Aeneas, the Trojan refugee, and Dido, the Queen of Carthage. Unlike the comic strip action of Rutland, the Lowham floor is a study in emotion and tension. We see the Trojan ships arriving at Carthage. We see the central panel where Aeneas and Dido are riding out on a hunt, their horses prancing, full of energy and romantic promise. Then we see the embrace, a darker, more intimate scene where the two figures are united. And finally, the betrayal. Virgil's poem ends this romance, with Aeneas leaving Dido to found Rome, commanded by the gods. The mosaic captures the tragic irony of their love. It was doomed from the start. But why put this on the floor? Because the Lowham mosaic is a piece of political propaganda. The Aeneid was the national epic of Rome. It was commissioned by Emperor Augustus to justify Roman rule. By placing this story on their floor, the owner of the Lowham villa was asserting their identity as a Roman. They were claiming a connection, cultural, if not biological, to Aeneas himself. When we look at Rutland and Lowham together, we see the full spectrum of the Trojan cycle. We have the tragic Greek past in Rutland, and the hopeful Roman future in Lowham. Together, they show how deeply these myths permeated the soil of Britain. But not all mythological mosaics were about high literature. Some were about primal fear. In the Roman world, images had power. They could attract luck, or they could ward off evil. We see this clearly at the braiding Roman villa on the Isle of Wight. Here, visitors are greeted by the staring eyes of Medusa. In Greek myth, Medusa was a monster, whose gaze turned men to stone. But in Roman art, her severed head, known as the Gorgonion, became a protective symbol. The logic was simple. To fight evil, you need something terrifying. By placing a Medusa head in the center of a floor, the homeowner was creating a spiritual shield. The concept of the evil eye, bad luck, envy, curses, was very real to them. The belief was that the evil eye would be caught by Medusa's stare and neutralized before it could harm the family. The braiding Medusa is a masterpiece of this genre. She isn't depicted as a hideous monster, but as a stylized, almost hypnotic figure, with snakes radiating from her hair like sunbeams. She is a guardian. This function of myth, as a magical tool for home security, adds a layer of practicality to the artistic beauty. Also at braiding, we find one of the most puzzling mythological figures in Britain, a man with the head of a cockerel and feet made of serpents. This figure is often associated with Abraxas, a deity from Gnostic mysticism, or it may be a satire of a gladiator or an emperor. Unlike the clear narratives of Troy, this image reminds us that the Roman world was a melting pot of cults, mysteries, and obscure beliefs. Mosaics preserved not just the mainstream myths of Homer and Virgil, but the strange, hybrid beliefs that bubbled up from the provinces. So, what does all of this tell us? The discovery of the Rutland mosaic has forced a rewrite of the history books. For years, the narrative was that Roman Britain in the 3rd and 4th centuries was a place of decline. We thought of it as a frontier crumbling as the empire retreated, a place where art was crude and culture was fading. These mosaics tell the exact opposite story. They reveal a society that was vibrant, wealthy, and intellectually ambitious. The people who commissioned the Rutland and Lowham mosaics were not barbarians squatting in ruins. They were connoisseurs. They were commissioning original art that referenced 800-year-old plays. They were plugging themselves into the cultural mainframe of the Mediterranean. In a way, These mosaics have outlasted the culture that created them. The Library of Alexandria burned, the scrolls of Aeschylus turned to dust, the oral traditions faded into silence. But the stones remained. When we look at the Rutland mosaic today, we are seeing a ghost of the lost play, The Phrygians. We are seeing the weighing scales that Aeschylus wrote about, but that no surviving manuscript describes. The mosaic has become a primary source. It is a stone document that fills the gaps in our literary record. Rediscovering Troy is not just about digging up a floor. It is about recovering a mindset. These mosaics remind us that the myths of the ancient world were not static stories locked in books. They were living, breathing parts of daily life. They were walked upon. They were dined over, they were argued about. From the tragic weight of Hector's body in Rutland to the doomed romance of Dido in Somerset, these floors preserve the heartbeat of a civilization. They show us that even on the furthest rain-soaked edge of the empire, the fires of Troy still burned bright, kept alive by the enduring power of storytelling and the imperishable nature of stone. That is the power of archaeology. It peels back the turf and reminds us that beneath our feet, the past is still waiting to tell its story. Thank you for listening to G Fun Facts Online.